Recording in progress.
도제 향기 kompanjutopsho. And let's just do the four immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semjen damje dewatang dewe jutang den pa jutik, dungal tang dungal chichu tang trawa jutik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindra wajutik, nering chaktang ni tang trawe tang drom chempola ne pa jutik. So good evening, everybody. It's lovely to see you. If you could switch on your cameras, I'll be very happy. Very happy. Then at least I can see your beautiful faces. Okay, just let me get my things. So tonight we're going to do part 2 of the beautiful Finding the Dimension. Just let me get the exact thing. So I've got the title for you. Just get her in. So we're going to do the fascination of understanding our 5 dimensions of being. Now this is such an important subject, and if you missed last week, then it would be nice if you went back and actually understood. Oh, Lily, I'm very happy to see you there. Your face, it's lovely. Stop me, anybody who wants to ask anything, because it's really important, because this is to relate to you. Hi, Kat. It's really important that it relates to you personally. So I'm going to start today with a story of Milarepa, who was a person really tuned into his primordial consciousness. In fact, he was a Buddha. But anyway, I want you to listen to the story because it's a really good comparison between your ordinary consciousness and your primordial consciousness. So once, Miller was challenged by a black magician of the pre-Buddhist faith of Tibet. He challenged Milarepa that through his magic power, he would be able to reach the summit of Mount Meru. Don't worry, cooks, it's fine. Miller replied that he could do the same. Let us see, said the magician, who will reach the summit first. And he started to climb up. It was very early in the morning, the sun hadn't risen, and Miller said he would rest a little. Those who had been present when the magician challenged him grew worried and implored him to hurry after his adversary. He was unruffled and didn't move from his rest. The magician was almost at the top of Mount Meru and was jeering at Miller when the first ray of the sun touched the summit of the holy mountain. Miller had been waiting for this moment. Through the mighty power of his concentration, he immediately became one with the ray, and before the magician realized what had happened, the figure of Milarepa appeared at the top of Mount Meru. It was actually Mount Kailash, or Meru. Hello, he called out to the magician, who was panting and puffing below him. Don't exert yourself. And the magician, who saw himself defeated, got such a shock that he dropped his magic drum. And his damaru, it leapt down in big bounds, and each time it bounced against the ice dome of Kailash, it emitted a loud tone and left a deep cut on the surface of the dome. Tang, tang, tang it went, to the great hilarity of all the onlookers, and up to the present day, a perpendicular line of stair-like impressions are to be seen, forming a vertical axis on the southern side face of the dome of Kailash. Now, the moral of this story is the difference between surrendering to your primordial consciousness, your Buddha nature, or making a great effort with your ordinary consciousness, your ordinary mind, to reach the summit. The steps created by the magician's drum are significant because, firstly, the magician comes from an ego base, and the magician's idea is to win and defeat. The steps show that the only progress with SEM, your ordinary consciousness, is step-by-step gradual process, where the other is instantaneous, spontaneous, effortless, just being at the view at the top. Now, this is really, really important. What have you got there, Fee? Oh, that's beautiful. That was the mountain. Beautiful. So it just went up the mountain on a sun ray, which was amazing. That's absolutely beautiful, really. Fantastic. So this clearly shows us the difference between the talent, the discoveries, the technology, the intellectual capacity of the human consciousness, and on and on and on, of the ordinary consciousness, and the totally, naturally, spontaneous perfection of our inherent true nature, our awakened nature. This is so important for you to understand, because this beautiful book by Tulku Pema Riksal called The Great Secret of the Mind, this is what he says. Realize the natural perfection of mind, and all our negative obscurations, all the things we are going through, accumulated over many eons of time, are purified in one instant. He said the karma accumulated in previous eons are countless. A pile of karma higher than that mountain we just saw and wider than the ocean is purified in one moment. If only we realize the nature of mind. As emotional afflictions have no substantial existence, but nonetheless appear through the dualistic delusion, just like a mirage and a dream, with the arising of the conditions that cause them to vanish, they also disappear automatically. So you don't need a solution to every one of your difficulties and your problems, to every emotion. You just release it, get your intrinsic awareness, and the past, present, and future are identical. And he says, consider a dark cave that has been in darkness for 1,000 years. We take a lamp, we put the lamp on in the cave, and it illuminates the cave. We cannot say that the darkness of eons is beyond illumination once the lamp is brought in. And likewise, all our difficulties, all our negative emotions, all our karmic imprints since beginningless lives are removed the instant we realize the true nature. You've just got to realize it, and then it's all cleared away. Now, this is so, so important, because when tonight we take the teachings on the 5 dimensions of being, and we start dancing with the energy of the 5 wisdoms and the energy of the 5 levels of primordial consciousness and the 5 kayas. We usually say the 3 kayas, but I'll tell you why we say the 5. And because we add to the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Niyamanakaya, we add the Rupakaya and the Svabhavikakaya, and we've got 5. Because we're looking at 5 dimensions. I'll explain in a moment. Okay. We will do a brief examination of this ordinary human consciousness, okay, and how most of it, we've got this consciousness only for the duration of this lifetime, but most of it dies when this human vessel, the physical body, dies. And the bit that remains, we need to understand and confront fully. It's very, very important that you all understand. We will look at the ordinary human consciousness very briefly and very quickly and compare it to the primordial consciousness. But we need to understand that when we die, everything in the ordinary consciousness dies with the physical body. The only thing that doesn't die is the eighth consciousness, which is called alaya consciousness or substrate consciousness. And that's got what you've carried, what you've created, your karmic imprints. It's got all your karmic imprints in. So you need to look at that, and you need to unite with that fully, with that awakened nature, because then they're gone. There's nothing there. There's nothing accumulated. Now, I'm going to give you a chance to talk, but I want to give you a few of my life's experiences of when that primordial consciousness actually worked through me. And then I'll throw it open. You can ask me things, because I really want you to dance with this energy. I want you to draw it, to feel it, to absorb it in your bones. You know, when we do the 5 energies, I mean, a lot of people like to put it, I know Fiona's going to put it on a chart, okay? And most people put it on a chart, and you can put it on a chart if you want. But I would much rather that you feel it in your being. So I want to share with you a few of my life's experiences and how the primordial consciousness operated through me, okay? And then you can see that this teaching is not something which is unique and extraordinary. When you understand the 5 dimensions of consciousness that I showed you with the crystal, that we've got all the different colors that go around in our consciousness. But when you start relating to 1 or 2 or 3, they start manifesting in your life so that you can feel them. And what's beautiful is Irini Rockwell has actually given the human qualities that happen when you find your Buddha family, your awakened family. Certain human qualities come through you. Anyway, just to tell you, you know, from me, that part of you, that primordial consciousness, we can call it Tigla Nutchik, we can call it primordial consciousness, we can call it Buddha nature, we can call it awakened nature, doesn't matter what you call it, okay? But that's the part, now listen carefully to this sentence, that knows everything about everything. Not only about the supernatural and the universal spiritual truth, but the mundane details of your life. Now, I want to go back to some of the things that have happened to me. When I was about 10 years old, 10 or 11, I was sleeping over at a family friend who lived nearby. We were quite close to this family, okay? And I have a vivid recollection of this. And this is what I want to share with you. The woman who we called auntie in those days we were polite to older women, not like today, okay? But she came into the room and she said to me, Melanie, I need your uncle's phone number. Now, the uncle was my house doctor and her house doctor. And she said, I need his telephone number. And so I said, sure. But when she went out of the room, I thought, why did I say sure? Because I don't know the number off by heart. Why did I tell her yes? Why didn't I say, sorry, I don't know it off by heart? And I felt so embarrassed with myself. And when she came back in the room with a pencil and paper, and I remember this very clearly, I was going to say, I'm really sorry, I don't remember the number. And out of my mouth came the number that I knew I didn't know off by heart. I knew I dialed it before, but I knew I didn't. And I remember clearly thinking, where did this come from? I know that I didn't know the number, but I gave it to her. Now, that was in my very early days, you know, when something was working through me. And when you connect with these 5 wisdoms and with these 5 dimensions of being, it starts to actually happen with you in all sorts of ways. Now, in my early days, those things really happened. Then fast forward, when I was married, and my mother-in-law died absolutely unexpectedly. She was young, she just had a heart attack and died. And the whole family was in total shock. And the next morning, I saw her at the edge of my bed, young and beautiful. I'd never seen her like this, but I saw her very clearly. And the vision that I saw in her actually connected with me and made me remember a lot of things that were coming through me. And when the family all arrived in shock, and in those days I hadn't done bereavement work, and I definitely hadn't done anything to do with dying, and I found that I was speaking to the family groups and telling them about bereavement and telling them about death and telling them about all sorts of things. And I remember wondering how this happened. How did this happen to me? Where did this come from? Now, I'm giving you these examples because I want to show you how, if you do open up, how many times, and I'm sure a lot of you will find your experiences. Now, in my work, I'm going to give a couple of examples, and then I'm going to give you some spiritual examples, some much deeper ones. But what happened in my work, I remember this very, very clearly, and it happened a lot of times, that a woman came to see me, and she had this extremely rebellious daughter who was driving her insane, okay? And she had this son who was a model child. I remember he did things. He was first in the class. He was the head boy of his primary school. He was everything. And after everything happened, she came and said, you know, Melanie, you said not to worry about my daughter, but to worry about the son. And she said, I thought you were absolutely crazy. And I said, did I? Did I say that? I didn't even remember saying it, because often these things happen through me and I wasn't even aware what was going on. But in actual fact, what happened with that family was that the son had a total breakdown. He actually became unable to even function in any way in the world. And her daughter grew up and really became quite a lovely girl and got married and all of that kind of thing. But when I look back, many times I would say things to people which really sometimes I would absolutely know. Like once a couple were fighting like crazy in my office, and he got up to either clap her or strangle her or something. And I pulled him off her. And then I said, and this came through me as well, I said, you two, you've been in so many lifetimes with each other. You've murdered each other. You've suicided on each other. You've done everything, and now you're back. And this is your last chance. And then when I'm finished saying those kind of things, I'm like shocked at myself, because, you know, I'm absolutely astounded that I'm actually saying that with such conviction, because I don't have clairvoyance in any way, and so I'm not saying to you ever that I have any prediction. What I usually do is read the karmic tapestries of people by putting all the facts together, but nothing clairvoyant, and all of this came through using the primordial consciousness. Now, we're going to say, so often people would come up to me and say, Melanie, you said, or you said at this talk, and I was amazing. Now, these are all the areas in which your nature of mind, your primordial consciousness works through you if you're open enough and if you practice a lot. And that's what I want you to do with all of this. So fast forward to the year 2013. And that was the year that I went on a 6-month retreat to India. And in that, but I know that my husband and I were lying on the bed this particular day. Now, if I had thought this out, I want you to understand that if I had thought this out with my ordinary consciousness, I would never have made that request, because I would have already known what his response would be. But when he asked me, what am I thinking, or what do I want, I actually heard this voice saying, I want to go to India for 6 months and do a retreat. Okay. When I heard myself saying it, I was quite shocked, but it was a very important turning point for me in my life. And what was unbelievable was that when these requests come from your primordial consciousness, what he actually answered me was absolutely uncharacteristic, because if I would have thought that out, he would have said, fine, pack your bags and go to India, and don't come back again. That would have been his normal response. Instead of which, he actually said, okay, I'll sponsor you. Now, this is very important for you to understand, because when you are using your primordial consciousness, when you are in touch with your 5 dimensions of being, the timing is right, the place is right, the response is right, because the solution was already there before you even started. Okay. Then I went. I took a hell of a chance. I wasn't going on a retreat, on a standard retreat, and going to join a whole lot of people. I was going on my own and didn't know where I was going in any way. And I closed my whole counseling practice. I had a huge counseling practice. I closed the groups. I don't know if some of you remember that last group when I went, that everybody came from all over. There must have been about 60 people at the center, because they couldn't believe that maybe I wasn't coming back or whatever would happen. And I left. I was really, really, really scared, because I wasn't going to anything I knew. I wasn't going to have a set retreat or anything else. Anyway, why I'm telling you the story is how the primordial consciousness operates. Because when I got to India, and when I went to Guru Rinpoche's cave first in Tsorpema, and then I went to the retreat. I was going to Taisitu's, to his monastery, okay? And when I saw the retreat room, I actually nearly had a bit of a heart attack, because it was dirty, and I had nothing, and I didn't know how I was going to live here, whatever the case is. But the next day I went and I sorted everything out. I went to the market. I got all stuff. I cleaned out the pots and pans. I cleaned the room. I made the bed. I found a shrine room, and I started to settle in. Okay. 4 days later, this knock comes in my door. Now I'm starting, and I had already seen Taisitu Rinpoche once, okay? And Lama Yeshe Rinpoche told me I will probably see him twice during the 6 months. But I went to him. He took one look at me, and he said, I just want you to do shamatha. Okay, that's all. I want you to just calm your mind, because he obviously saw all the year of turmoil and the leaving, and my mind was probably what he was seeing with his brilliant mind was absolute turmoil. So I said, okay. Now, I wasn't happy about it, but I said, okay, I'll do that. And 4 days later, you all know the story, the Lama knocked at the door and said, Melanie, I'm really sorry, but you have to leave the retreat. I said, what? He said, guys, he said, I must actually switch off the background noise. It would be better. Yeah. So he said, you have to leave. I said, to where? To what? Where must I go? What must I do? Why? He said, there are no more permits for Westerners in this part of the thing. You have to go. I said, where? Now I'm trying to settle in, and I'm trying to get to do what Taisitu had asked me to do, and now I've got to go. And I went into the motor car with a girl who'd been kicked out as well, and she had goods and shackles right up to the top of the car. She was taking everything and leaving. I said to the Lama, to the monk, what must I take? He said, just take a little suitcase. So I threw a couple of cosmetics and things and few clothes in the suitcase, and off I went. To where? I don't know. And I landed up. She told me, this girl, well, maybe you should go to Kamapa's monastery. So I went to Kamapa's monastery. There was one room in the whole monastery. See, this is how your primordial consciousness works. There was one room, and the thing I do remember about the room was that the toilet was broken, so you couldn't sit on the toilet in any way, okay, when I got there. And I didn't like the monastery, and I didn't like the place. But what I did know is that my room faced the Karmapa's room, right over there, and that I was right facing him. So I tried for quite a lot of time to get an appointment with him, and eventually I did. And out of me came, I'm here, but would you help clean me up? Who says that to, to this great Lama? Would you help clean me up? And he said, okay. Anything else? I said, no, after waiting in this queue for so long, and I've got a big enough mouth, but I didn't say anything. But clean me up, he did. Because for the next few weeks, all I did was cry. I just cried and cried and cried. And what I was doing was, I was doing all the nondra and doing the shamatha that Taisito had asked me to do, to clean up that alaya consciousness, which I'm going to tell you about. And I would cry about something and then get up, and there were no more tears. And then I would ask myself, what am I crying about? There's nothing to cry about. And then I would go on, and it would keep happening to me because it was happening through me to cleanse me. And it was very important because I did go back once to see Taisito Rinpoche, but because of help that I had, I managed to get the permit in Delhi and go back to the monastery. And Taisito Rinpoche was so impressed that I got the permit. I was the first Westerner back. So there was no one there. And that was how it was planned for me, that there'd be no one there so that I could have hours as long as I wanted with him, which is unheard of. People don't get that kind of time with him. But the thing is that he was very impressed with me getting, and I kept telling him, no, Rinpoche, I had help. My son-in-law helped me, had contacts in Delhi, didn't care. The fact that I was there and that I was the only Westerner there impressed him enough. And so when I went for my first interview, and this is my important point, he said to me, I was expecting him to say to me, okay, go and do these practices and those practices. And he didn't. He said to me, what do you want? Okay. And I heard this voice. I didn't recognize the voice at all. I heard the voice talk through me. And I heard the voice saying, I want the two practices, the highest practices in Dzogchen. I mean, to even have the nerve to ask for it, but I didn't ask for it. It asked through me. That's what I want to tell you, because I didn't even know what those practices were. I was amazed when it came out of my mouth. And what he did after that was, he looked at me for what seemed like an hour, okay? But it probably was 2 minutes, 3 minutes. He just looked at me, and obviously what he was doing was reading my conscious records. He must have been reading my records, because he didn't answer me for all that time. And then he said the words, okay. But he said, you'll have to wait a little while till I call you. I said, no problem. Once he said, okay, it was like he cut the gate for me. He cut it just by saying, okay, because things opened up for me, which were absolutely unbelievable. Things just opened up. The world opened up. My whole spiritual practice changed. Everything changed from that moment. And why I'm telling you this is because all the causes and conditions came together to enable me something that I'd obviously done in previous lifetime. Otherwise, he would never have given it to me. And then I still had to wait for another about 10 days. And then he knocked on the monk knocked and said, Rinpoche is ready for you. And I remember getting dressed and making myself ready and running. And then he gave me the pointing out instructions for something like 2 hours. Okay, nobody gets that from him. It was probably the greatest privilege of my whole life, okay, to be alone with him and have all this time with him was the most unbelievable thing. But why I'm telling you about this, why I'm telling you this so important is that it's really, really important for all of you to know that this working with the 5 dimensions of being, working with it, relating to it, okay, is allowing that primordial consciousness, which I'm going to teach you on, and the ordinary one, to work through you so that you're in the right place at the right time. When you stop feeling like a victim, when you stop saying, look at my life, why am I like this? Why have I gone through this? What have I gone through? Why is it all happening to me? It's happening to you because it's your creation. It's your opportunity to clear that Alaya consciousness that's got all your imprints in. And therefore, if you go through it and come out and you keep, while you're going through it, keep in touch with that primordial consciousness, you will be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. Does anyone want to say anything? Because then I'm going on after that to create awareness. I felt that was important. I was sitting and pondering how I should give these 5 dimensions of being. And I thought, you know what? I have to give it to you because I do the Bardo prayers on the 5 dimensions of being every day. I know them off by heart. So I keep on saying how you transmute what is in your ordinary consciousness to your primordial consciousness, and then nothing makes a difference in your life. Questions, comments, whatever you want to say. I'm waiting.
Mal, sorry, Mal, I just want to say, I remember when you went to India, and I don't remember you being scared or nervous or
I didn't tell you.
or anything like that, yeah. But you were
Yes.
very organized with everything, and there was a lot going on to get you there, but I don't remember like you ever saying that you were scared or anything like that.
I was petrified. Okay, I remember sitting in Guru Rinpoche's cave before I got there, and I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing or how it was to be. And when I look back, that was the turning point in my spiritual life. Nothing else matters like that, because that is when I was introduced to my primordial consciousness in a proper, direct manner. Okay, and I remember Taisitu doing a drawing for me. And he drew a box. And he said, this is everyday life. This is where your ordinary consciousness happens. Then he went like this. He drew a thick black line like this, okay, up to this point. And he said, from your ordinary consciousness, you've got all these obscurations. It's a thick black line. You've got these stains. He said, and then from here, he drew little dots, broken line. He said, now your stains are starting to be removed. And then he took it right up to the primordial consciousnness. And he said, everything that you do when all the stains are removed are what we call nyam. They are the temporary, transient experiences that you have while you're getting introduced to your primordial consciousness. And then once you reach what he called Rikpatekpa, then there's no going back. Then you are living in your primordial consciousness and nothing else counts anymore. So he explained this to me. And then you watch somebody like him who lives in a world, in a pure world of pure consciousness. And you realize that he's living in his primordial consciousness while he is in this life. And it's so important. It really, really is. And the story of Marpa is a beautiful story. It says there's a story of the great Tibetan teacher Marpa, who lived on a farm with his family 1,000 years ago in Tibet. On the farm, there also lived many monks who came to study with this great teacher. And you're going for your Marpa empowerment in India. One day, Marpa's oldest son was killed. Marpa was grieving deeply when one of the monks came to him and said, I don't understand. You teach us that all this is an illusion, yet you are crying. If this is all an illusion, then why do you grieve so deeply? Marpa replied, indeed, everything is an illusion, and the death of a child is the greatest of these illusions. Very interesting thing. The greatest of these illusions. He's saying, when you go through things, it doesn't mean you don't feel things, but once you know that it's illusionary, once you know that everything in your life is illusionary, temporary, transient, then your ordinary consciousness can transform. And I showed you last week when you take a garment and you turn the garment inside out, okay? It's completely different. This is the garment we are wearing in our lives. And it's got holes and it's got ordinary things. And when you turn it around and you actually attain that primordial consciousness, then everything changes in your whole perception. Questions, anybody, because I'm going to go on to the ordinary consciousness now. But really, I want you to ask any question, because I've specially given you just a couple of the things in my life and how please.
It's not so much a question, actually, if that's okay. Is it all right?
Perfect.
So I've just had a very extraordinary experience this week where like I'm single at the moment, and I've met somebody online who seems really nice, and this person's unleashed this kind of extraordinary experience within me, and I felt really kind of overwhelmed and like warm and sensitive and everything. But all of a sudden there's come this kind of overwhelming feelings of trying to locate the feeling. I don't know, like love, but I don't know the person at all. I don't know the person really. I mean, this is like a fantasy, right? And the projection has been obvious. It's like you're projecting onto this person. So that the only thing that is left is to recognize that this is like when you approach a deity or some other kind of spiritual experience where actually the love that you're experiencing is within yourself and you're projecting it onto another person and it's actually coming back at you and you're experiencing some profound purity which is actually within you. It's you. And it just has unleashed, I'm telling you, the most, like I'm just finding myself crying and like
Wonderful.
going to this kind of
Wonderful.
place where I'm just thankful for every partner that I've ever had, which I've never done before, believe you me.
Because no one unleashing it has touched that place inside you. And you see, when that place is touched.
And I just have to share something a little extra on this. So I encountered something in this person that I really didn't like. and the values really didn't match up too much in that moment, right? So I made a decision that that wasn't going to be the right thing for me. So I actually did the whole blocking thing like we do these days.
But if
And and then I watched a program on TV, which was a trash TV program, I might add, where you might all go, "Oh my God, you don't really watch that, do you?" And during this program, they talked about how somebody was entitled to understand why the person had been motivated to do what they'd done. And I just thought to myself, like, this person's entitled to understand why you've done this. Anyway, so I told him, and it was just incredible. I mean, talk about get a spiritual kind of like it's just it's been really unreal. It's just like changed the whole dynamic onto a spiritual kind of understanding, which I really wasn't expecting. And
I just
yeah,
want to say to you that when you understand the wisdoms, when you
mm,
understand the 5 ways of connecting to reality, what happened to you is a very common experience, okay? But what we're doing with the ordinary consciousness versus the primordial consciousness is we're learning to separate what is an ego projection
yeah, absolutely.
to compare to what is a connection with someone that you reconnecting, you already know them in a way, or
Yeah,
what is a connection that might be very temporary and very transient, but touches something in you that is unbelievable. I mean, you need, that's what you need to look at, because remember, most of what we do projections from coming from ourselves.
yeah,
And as soon as they are ego projections, you can tell the difference immediately between
yeah,
ego projection, that is when you're dying for something to happen and you want it and you will it and you make it happen, and then you see it absolutely in a distorted way. You don't see it in a real way because you want it so much that the desire creates that. Now, when you look at the wisdoms, there are 2 wisdoms there, which we'll talk about. The one is discriminating wisdom, and that is when you learn to discern the difference between the relative and the ultimate truth. And the other one would be mirror-like wisdom, which is which the perversion is anger, which mirror-like wisdom, we'll get to all of these, is when you look in the mirror of what is being shown to you. And it's your own creation being mirrored back to you so that you can learn from it. It's really a very important thing, what you say. So
yeah. I've experienced this whole last few days as just being very difficult in a way, very difficult because I don't really know what I'm crying at. Like I'm crying and I just don't really know why I'm crying.
let that crying happen. Let it
Yeah,
happen, because it's really important, because sometimes just the crying softens everything and makes you ready. Like I told you, when I was at the Karmapa's monastery, I mean, I cried and cried and cried. I don't know for how many weeks. I didn't really know what I was crying about as I was contemplating precious human birth and this and that and remembering karmic events. I just cried. And then it was all clean. And then when I came to the master, he looked at it and he said, now what do you want? Because what he was saying when I arrived there was, oh my God, your mind is in such an upside down, inside out turmoil. I can't put anything there. Go and
mm,
clean your mind, and then you can come and ask me for what you want. And that's
mm.
what most of us are doing. Our minds are turmoiled all the time, and we have to change that. But let's just do a little bit of the 2 consciousnesses, okay? Tulku Tsolo defines the perfectly perfected Buddha or awakened one using primordial consciousness. But when you're using primordial consciousness, you fully understand ordinary consciousness. While you're in your primordial, you understand the ordinary. So he says, to be awakened, I said this last week, is defined as the Trikaya and the 5 modes of primal awareness. Now, the Trikaya can also be 5. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. If you're looking at the 5 dimensions of being, each wisdom, each reality is connected with one of the 5 kayas. And the 5 kayas are the Dharmakaya, which is your essence, your purity, your emptiness, your absolute base out of which everything happens. The Sambhogakaya is when the beautiful energy, the expression comes out in its pure color, and you are at that level. That's the Sambhogakaya. And the Nirmanakaya is when you take this unlimited, compassionate energy and put it out everywhere. The Rupakaya is the 2 bodies that come out of the Dharmakaya, and the Svabhavikakaya is all 5 together. Okay, so you have 5 exquisite bodies rather than your ordinary body, your ordinary speech, and your ordinary mind. You have a Vajra body, Vajra speech, Vajra mind, and different combination. And the 5 modes of primal awareness, which is when you begin to understand that this personality, this person, this, what I'm going through in my life is actually just like going in a boat on a vessel, going through all the things I've created and coming out on the other side pure and healed. It's nothing. It's no thing. You are your beautiful awakened consciousness. So when you look at the Buddha defined like that, that's what we are going for. But I don't want to do it in a chart, because I find that a chart is too methodical. I want you to dance with it so that you know when it is actually affecting you. You feel it in your bones, in your body, in everything that you are doing. But just let's quickly look at the everyday, ordinary human consciousness. Okay, it's defined, and then we'll do a meditation, as 8 levels of consciousness. Your ordinary human intellectual consciousness has got 8 levels of consciousness. Okay, and these can be purified and reveal themselves as the 5 kinds of primordial awareness. There's no difference. The one's a perversion and the one's a truth. The one's a delusion and the other's awakening. They're the same. You just turn them the other way around. If you've got anger, you've got a lot of anger, and you look deeply, not with your human eyes, but you look deeply in that anger, it goes into mirror-like wisdom, because there's no such a thing as anger. How can there be anger when it's come out of purity? There can't be. But because of your deluded pathway, because of you not being able to see, it's anger. But once you see it, it releases itself and it becomes a mirror-like wisdom for you. It's really important that you get this whole idea. So for the purposes of these talks, we'll just do this very briefly. The 8 levels of human consciousness, 5 levels of sense consciousnesses. Okay, so you've got eye consciousness, ear consciousness, smell consciousness, taste consciousness, and touch consciousness. 5 senses. Do you know that none of these senses have got they've got no biases or anything. They just see things as they are. Now, if you take a child, when a child sees something, they don't judge it. If they walk into a temple, they say, "Oh, mommy, look at all these beautiful colors." They don't go, "I don't like it, I do like it." When they get older, they do. But they just see it purely. The 5 sense consciousnesses, see, hear, touch, and all the rest of it in an absolutely non-mind way. They just perform. They're 5 sense consciousnesses. But the 6th consciousness is your mind consciousness. And your mind then changes about what it is. So I might see this bowl, and my eye sees this bowl. I might even hear it as a cling, okay? But my mind consciousness says, I like this. I don't like this. I don't like the sound. I don't like how it looks. I do like it. The mind consciousness says, is it a bowl? Is it a this? Is it a gong? What is it? The mind consciousness is the thing that determines about what you see, what you hear, and everything. So that mind consciousness has got to be trained. It's got to be trained to stop judging, to stop doing a lot of those things, okay? Then the 7th consciousness is called the klesha consciousness. Now, the klesha consciousness has got all the afflictions. Klesha means negative emotions. But the klesha consciousness is mostly connected with I, me, myself, my needs, what I want. It's all to do with the ego. The klesha consciousness really is the thing that separates you. Some people are going in and out. That separates you from what you see, causes duality, and then it's all about you. So if someone comes into the room, look like you're saying, someone comes into the room and you like them, the klesha consciousness says, I'd like to have her, or I'd like to possess that person, or whatever. Goes way beyond what the senses actually see, and even beyond what the mind consciousness does. So that's your klesha consciousness. And then finally, the 8th one is your alaya consciousness, or your substrate consciousness. And the substrate consciousness, or the alaya consciousness, everything you think or do with any of those consciousness, your actions gets recorded. It's recorded in you. It's not recorded in a God record or something like that. It's recorded in your alaya consciousness. And that's the only thing left when you die. All the other 7 die. There's nothing left of them when you die. But the alaya consciousness, or the substrate, goes with you. Now, if when you go into death, if you are able to recognize, know who you really are, you'll free yourself even before the alaya consciousness kicks in. But if you can't, if you don't know that I've got these beautiful five dimensions of consciousness, so if you don't know, then it's too bright, it's too much. You can't see it, you faint. And then you wake up in the 3rd bardo. There is your beautiful alaya consciousness. It's nobody saying to you, bad girl, look what you did. Not at all. It's your own mind projecting out whatever you have done. So you can't get away from it. There's nobody you can say, why are you pointing a finger at me? There's no one to point a finger at you. That alaya consciousness, we have got to purify. And the primordial consciousness helps us to purify that alaya consciousness, because it accepts the status quo of what you're going through, because it knows everything about everything, and it knows that what you are going through is really, really, really what you need in order to clear the 8th level of consciousness. Question, comments, anything you want to know, then we'll go on. Because it's really important that you all understand this clearing of the human consciousness. Because if you are able through practices, through understanding, through giving your life on a journey to really connect with that which is real to you. And this is not specific to Buddhism. This is everybody, whatever religion you are, whatever you believe, this is everybody. Then you want to connect with that primordial consciousness, and you want that ordinary consciousness to be purified. And what I started off in the beginning was one connection with that primordial consciousness, with that Buddha nature, and all the obscurations are cleared in 1 second. Why? Because that doesn't exist in your real self. That doesn't exist in your 5 dimensions of consciousness. It only exists in the human consciousness that we've really developed over a long period of time. It only exists there. La, I can see you've got something you want to know. Your mind is concentrating very hard. Do you want to ask something? La? No? Okay. Anyone else? Anything you want to say?
Mel?
Yes, please.
Mel, I'm sorry. I'm having a very bad time with the connection. You're freezing. I'm going to have to continue listening to your recorded version. It's
Shame.
driving me mad.
Yeah, because it's
Even now, I can't hear you. You disappear and then you freeze, and then my whole connection is all weird. Sorry about that.
Okay, darling, don't worry about it. You'll get it on the recording. Anyone else want to say anything?
Yeah, Mel. So I want to ask, so when you die and
Yes.
all your elements are folding in on each other, and then you die, and you're going through the bardo, and then you're faced with all these sights and sounds, and you either faint or then you recognize. And if you are there stages of recognition, like because I wonder how do we find truth, not just Buddhism, but any kind of realization, is that do we have like a little glimpse, and then we still would go through reincarnation because we have stuff to learn, and do we go to different places? I mean, like there's the spirit world, there's other universes. Do we go and hang out there and then we get reborn here? Because this is one of the places where we do school or learning or wisdom. So I think, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Bit of a roundabout question.
I think your question is brilliant, and I think it's really, really important because there's so many options. You see, for me, it's quite a simple answer, because when you begin to understand this, for me, I needed to, the day I went to attend, it was absolute coincidence that I landed up there, but I attended, I think you know about that, Akon Rinpoche's course at Sammy Ling, which he did every, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. And when I came into Buddhism, I happened to just decide to go to Sammy Ling. It was all just absolutely no planning whatsoever. And I land up in his course. And he's talking about the 5 wisdoms. Okay. And we're going to do, he was doing Patu Rinpoche's prayer on the 5 wisdoms. Okay. And I hardly knew what he was talking about. Okay. I really didn't get it. But what's interesting, and then when he asked us, he asked us after all of us to write a commentary, to write to write the prayer down. I think he asked us to write it down in our own words, to write it. And what I did was, it was very interesting. She just looked up. What was very interesting about it was that I put my hand up and I said, Rinpoche, do we have to put our names on it? Because I thought, if I have to write what he taught us about the 5 wisdoms, I'm going to absolutely make a complete fool of myself. And he laughed about it. I think we did have to put on that. I didn't know what I was doing. But when I came home, I took that prayer, and I've done that prayer, Kathy, every single day or second day of my life. I've said that prayer until I understood it. Okay. Now I want to give it to you so that you could also read it and say it and understand it. But what is very, very important is once you start relating to the 5 dimensions of being, you start to see where you belong. Okay, you start to see what of these 5 dimensions is me. Now, Irini Rockwell has done, and I've got it here, and when you're ready for it, I'll give it to you. She's actually done an entire chart. She goes, the 5 wisdom energies at a glance. And what she's done is she's put how the 5 wisdoms manifest through you so that you can make a connection. Kath, are you trying to do something else? Because I'm trying to explain the answer to your question. It's quite disconcerting if you're doing something else. But, okay. But what I'm trying to say is that once you connect with at least one of the dimensions of the 5, then you will recognize as soon as you come to the second bardo, even if you can't recognize the clear light, you will recognize the family to whom you belong, because the 5 dimensions present themselves in the bardo. And if you can recognize them, re-know them, you'll connect, and that's the end. Then you ask me what happens to you after that. Well, did you know that if you can connect at that level, you could then go to one of the pure lands? And do you know that you can still purify some of your things from that level of the pure land? The pure land is the level at which you go with your mind. And when you go, you can actually do from the Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya levels, you could still purify whatever you've had left. So that's what happens. You don't have to be catapulted into another incarnation and take on all this stuff. Once you are awake and once you are aware, remember, people who manage to get the rainbow body, those are people that actually all the elements dissolve into their pure state at death. So they're free, no matter what. And if they've got stuff to do, they'll do it. They'll do it wherever they are. You don't have to come in that way. So it's very important. Tolu, please, go for it. Go on.
Muting. I'm muting. Sorry, it takes me a moment to get the hang of it. So I've got a question about writing, because quite often in other traditions, and I'm really not familiar. I mean, what you're teaching me here about this Buddhism is as much as I know about this Buddhism. I don't know much about this Buddhism at all. But other schools of thought, let's say, suggest that you write and you do automatic writing, and you, in addition to meditation, and that you write stories, or that you write about your day, like the philosophers suggest that you write, asking yourself difficult questions to resolve your kind of patterns. Let's not call it karma for that, but let's just call it patterns. Do you and does this Buddhism suggest writing as a way? Because I'm not writing as much as I'd like, but I do find writing quite helpful.
If you find writing helpful, it's wonderful. Write by all means. Okay, write down, because when we do the energies of the 5 dimensions of being, and I'm not sorry tonight that I haven't gone fully into them, because what I gave you today, I want you to really think about a lot, and to incorporate that. But write, dance. You know what I did with people when they were on retreat is I made them all dance into the colors that they really that they really related to. You have to do it creatively. It's no good just doing it on charts and intellectually, because it doesn't give you that relationship. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. I know very well what you're saying, actually. Yeah.
You draw, you write, you paint can only be to enhance you.
To
But you
be creatively involved in the process, basically, is what you're saying, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
I think, this is really important. And I just want you to understand one thing, that when the elements purify themselves, then you have got the 5 female Buddhas. So some of you might say, what do you mean the elements purify and each of them become a female Buddha? A female Buddha is a symbol. And that symbol is in the form, that's why you can write about it, of a female Buddha. But once the elements purify, they represented as a female Buddha. It doesn't have to be a female Buddha if you really don't want. Could be a female anything, but it's the pure female energy. In Buddhism, it's represented as a Buddha. You can represent it in any way. You can represent it as red, pure energy if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. But you're trying to understand that this, once you turn it the right way round, is pure. And that's the important thing. So let's just do a little meditation, and let me try and introduce 1 or 2 things. I'm going to just switch this on so I can the gong. I want to introduce 1 or 2 things to help you to do this creative process. So I want you to breathe in very, very, very expansively. Breathe in the beautiful blue sky. The blue sky is your nature of mind. It's so vivid, the blue, that if you saw it, you'd just go, oh, it's blue, it's spacious, it's open, it's empty. And as you breathe it into your being, you feel like you are touching that pure part of you. It's like such a relief when you are going through a hard time. Instead of getting entangled in everything, instead of getting entangled, you are just allowing everything to release itself. And you're allowing this pure blue spaciousness to take right over everything that you are doing. And what you are beginning to understand is there are 5 skandhas that the Buddha spoke about, which make up the ego, your form, your feelings, your perceptions, your habits, and your consciousness. And we think that's who we are. But each of these aspects, when they are transformed, they appear as 5 male Buddhas, and we learn their names and we relate to them. So as we are going, as we touch the feeling level, everything that you feel in your being, everything that you feel is called the skandha of feeling. And you wonder, what would the feelings be if they were pure? And when you look at it, the Buddha Ratnasambhava is the one who relates to the feelings. And Ratnasambhava relates to the earth, relates to generosity, relates to openness, relates to abundance, relates to everything. So some of you might find that you relate to that, and that you see that the feelings all get transmuted into their pure form. And when you begin to understand that, each feeling relates to one of the dimensions of of your 5 dimensions, your form, your feelings, everything relates to it. And the 5 poisons are delusion, passion or craving, aggression, pride, and envy. Now, if we saw these 5 poisons in their true condition, they would become 5 wisdoms or 5 ways of knowing reality. There never was anger, delusion, aggression, pride, jealousy, and envy. There never was that. There were always the 5 wisdoms or the 5 ways of knowing reality. So look deeply at your feelings. When you look at each feeling, there's a true form of that feeling. Don't hang on to all the feelings. Allow them into the spaciousness, the blueness, the openness of your pure nature, and they will transform into the wisdoms. And when we begin to understand the wisdoms, we see them. Each one has got a different feature, a different way of looking at reality. So I want you tonight just to play with that in your being. Don't stick with your human being. Understand that you are so much more. The family you've got here is a temporary, transient family. The family where you belong. One of the Buddha families, one of the ways of knowing reality is the true sense of who you really are. Now look tonight at how many times you find that you don't play your usual charade, your usual shenanigans, your usual defense mechanisms, your usual whatever you do, defenses, angers, aggressions, intellect, whatever you play, and put it all into the nature. And what you were experiencing this week, Tauluk, is so brilliant, because it's when you open yourself to the whole universe of who you really are, that the beauty of who you are can start manifesting. And it usually does manifest in tears. You feel things deeply, but it's a kind of a feeling that is generous and open and not threatened and not defensive. It's open and touching and experiencing and feeling other people's pain. That is when you start to relate to the 5 pure dimensions of your being. The 5 aggregates of form, feelings, perceptions, habits, and consciousness are all temporary. They're not who you are. Yes, they seem to make up you as a person, but they're not who you are. Nothing like who you are. Neither are the poisons. So when you start relating to the 5 dimensions of reality, the 5 awakened dimensions, the whole world transforms. You become an awakened being. The world becomes a Buddha field. The sound is the pure sound of the mantras, of the being, of your essence has a sound. It's a pure, pure sound. If you block your ears, you can sometimes hear it inside. If you push your ears in, you'll hear that sound. It's a really, really deep beautiful sound. We miss all of this all the time. You know, there's so much to discuss on this subject, but we'll go on with it. Just tell me, when is Easter? What date?
Mel, it's the 2018.
Oh, it's
20th. It's the 20th. Oh yeah, 20th of April.
20th, okay. No, because we'll stop, and that's over a long weekend, isn't it? Okay. Now, I just wanted to know, but what we can do, I'll stay if anybody wants to ask me, but I think it's enough for tonight. But I just want you to leave with the feeling of looking at your ordinary consciousness and your awakened consciousness and seeing, making a conscious effort that now you want to understand it. Maybe we could just end with one of those Bardo prayers, if possible, Fee, and then we'll do our dedication. Okay, everybody say this together. Oh, let's do, yeah, that's fine. That's one of the Bardo prayers. Just go on to, okay. I never do that top part. Homage to the Gurus, Yidams, and Dakinis with their great love, may they lead us on the path. When through confusion you wander in samsara, confusion is the delusion, on the undistracted, no, this is not the one that I want.
Can you then send me what the one that you have? Because there are many versions on the internet.
Yeah. Okay, just give me, have you got Patrol Rinpoche's one? Go on that one. Yeah. You know what, Cooks, I'm going to rather send you my versions of them.
Please, because there's so many different versions available.
Sorry, I thought you had the ones. Yeah, I'll send you, so don't worry about it. Let's leave it and I'll do it next time. But just to say to everybody that when you do the prayers, and we'll photocopy them and then use them, when you use the prayers, you get used to all the stuff and how it actually works, and how the interchange of the human and the you know, the primordial actually works. And when you say those prayers every day and think about them, they really do generate amazing things. So Fee, let's just dedicate for all those, especially those in the earthquake. I'm really thinking of all those buried under the buildings and buried under everything. For all those in the earthquakes, the hostages, the wars, the terrible things that are going on in the world at the moment, we really dedicate, if there's any merit, to dedicate to all of them. And through this merit, may all beings attain omniscience, may all obscurations fall away from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be freed. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jega nachi balak dropaye sipe sole doa do warsho. So, people